Hello and welcome to yet another episode of ETH Insights. Today we have with us Ronesh Puri, MD of Executive Access India, a veteran in the search and leadership advisory space. Hello Ronesh, welcome to ETH Insights.
Thank you very much, Alika. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Ronesh. Ronesh, you have placed over 100 CEOs and board directors. When you look at certain profiles, what is that you notice that companies common mistakes but often overlooked that they make when hiring at this level, and how can they course correct?
A good question. Nothing that a company does is more important than hiring. It can make or break a company. So, hiring is like a marriage, nothing good or bad. But determining who is most compatible is very, very important. Our tendency is to look at a candidate from only a professional side. Look at the past track record, see the person has delivered on the parameters that you want delivered, been to a good organization and been to a good educational institute, ticking the boxes, and you tend to say, wow, I've got a great hire. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work around on that parameter. You do need to get under the skin. First of all, determine what is the DNA of the candidate. What are the key drivers of the candidate? Are they compatible to what your dreams and visions are? Because if a person works with both heart and mind, the productive will be 5x more. If the person is doing something which the person is not really passionate about and could be the most brilliant in the world, the results will be suboptimal. So I think focus in terms of the candidate's key drivers. What is the trip in life? What really brings and gives energy to the candidate? And seeing whether those sync with what your perspective are. If the higher purpose and the larger purpose is serving, the chances of the candidate fulfilling and delivering to your promise will be far more. Secondly, it is your compatibility quotient. Everybody cannot work with everyone. However great the person's skills are, people's skills are, however adaptable the person are, there are certain individuals will give energy to a person, certain individuals that will sap the energy. And if they're giving energy to one another, then obviously results will be far better because the person will be delivering and performing far better. So looking at that is very, very important. Third thing that you need to keep in mind is past is history. It was a different context. Whatever a candidate has done 5 years, 3 years, 2 years before, that is good as far as the context is concerned, but no guarantee about the future because the future is very dynamic. So be focused in terms of the future. What you want delivered, what could be some roadblocks the person will face, and then who is the best equipped to sort of handle that. Look at that. Tendency of the companies or the person hiring is to just allow the candidate to walk through the CV, talk all about the past, and then you presuppose that the future will be as good as the past. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen. So therefore, you just do need to look at your hiring, give a little bit more importance to your future, give more importance to the innate key drivers and DNA of the person, and see whether the person that you work around is somebody you would love to work with, will give you energy. If those are tick boxes, the chances of success will be far greater.
Very interesting what you said about, when we look at only past experiences, then our future will mirror the past itself. Looking at the larger industry view, a lot of companies today, they have this concern and rather complain of a growing talent shortage, especially at leadership positions and above VP threshold. What does it take to hire right at that level, and how does one differentiate between ready now leaders and those who just interview well, like you just said?
So I think first of all, the company as a company, you have to be as obsessed with hiring the best, not just filling up a position. You lose the plot when you say, look, I want this person and this position replaced, and therefore want to force fit a person. I think the main essence of your hiring is actually lost. So first of all, you do need to be very clear that hiring is an opportunity for you to move to the next level, and you have to just look at one north star, which is who is best for me. People often forget that, in fact, they will have a cost constraint. Say, I want a person on this particular package. But in life, trust me, more for more is better than less for less. If by paying, even argument's sake, 1 crore more, you're getting maybe results of 50 crores more of business, it is still a great deal. So why be so transfixed that I have to fit in a person at this particular package? Why not be open-minded and be focused more in terms of results? That is what it is. As far as you're saying how to pick up talent, I think you have to look at the key drivers of a person. The old school of hiring and looking at the family background, the value systems, what is something that motivates a person, they had its value. Today you just tend to ignore that. And tendency is to just look at the career span of a person. But trust me, we are first human beings and then professionals. And if you're able to gauge a person professionally and not as a human being, you will miss the bus. You will make the wrong hire, and that can be catastrophic. So therefore, understanding the DNA is very, very important. For a candidate also, there will be his key drivers in the person. So you look at that. Look at how passionate a person is. If the person is passionate, living the dreams, the person will give more. If the person is not passionate about that industry, about the job, or the organization, then obviously results will be suboptimal for you. However great the person, maybe better in ability, but trust me, the results will not be as good. So hiring is both art and a science. And you have to be, in art, you're flexible. You're not transfixed in terms of that. Otherwise, there'll never be a great art. So therefore, keep that element in mind and do not have your biases also in place. Because biases today, in fact, unfortunately, they are the root cause of getting suboptimal hiring. And they could be of any time, depending on your past experience, depending on the kind of hiring that you've done in the past, the results that you got out of it. You then try to label people around. There. So be open-minded, be a little flexible, look at the key drivers of an individual, look at how hungry the person is, look how passionate the person is, look at the part whether this person is hardworking or will take it only as a job. If a person works with heart and mind, results will be 5x. If the person is only working with either heart or a mind, however great the person is, results will be suboptimal. So look across at all those traditional dimensions rather than just do an interview with discussing and about the past 10, 20, 15 years and presupposing that is what the person is. The mistake I think is made, and great hires are lost around when you just go through a template of standard questions and then presuppose logic. They say nothing is rarer than the ability to recognize ability. So therefore, you do need to give it a priority that for you, when you're trying to get, you have to get under the skin of the candidate. You have to pierce the wheel, see what the real candidate is all about, and read between the lines. Because the candidates will also give the best foot forward. They'll project whatever you want to hear. Are you astute enough to sort of see the contradictions? Are you able to read between the lines and understand, that this may not be true? And are you challenging the candidate enough in the interview to try to discern and get to the truth becomes very important.
Like you said, to read the person behind the professional, right? To get under the skin of the candidate.
Yes.
You have placed over 400 senior leaders in family-run businesses. What is it that you would say family enterprises get right that corporates sometimes miss? And on the other hand, what they need to fix or identify the blind spots and address those to remain agile?
So the family-owned enterprises, there's a reason why they do better than the non-family owned. Incidentally, if you look across at the last 10 years, the results of family owned offices and businesses has been far better than professional multinational ones. I mean, and there is a reason. They will look around at the cultural and mindset treatment far more. There. They will have less biases. There. They try to get under the skin of the candidate. They spend quality time, even calling the person home, trying to see how the person would behave, trying to get the discussion on the non-professional side. There. So they are a little bit obsessed with the fitment, which is non-professional in nature, than say standard multinationals, who will have a template and will try to force fit a person. There. And that is why, they tend to do better. But as far as the blind spot is concerned, I think family owned businesses have to be ready to be challenged. See, what the multinational do, they have a great process, but they also challenge one another. The discussions, around will not come from top down. There will be questions enough and questions that will be asked of the top management from bottom up as well, which makes the culture more vibrant, which gets you a better pulse of the matter, and that is what they tend to do. Family-owned enterprises, unfortunately, is to sometimes tend to be too hierarchy-driven. Whatever the patriarch has said is God's gift to mankind, no challenge, you just follow it. And therefore, they may not be as partial to do what is right for business as, say, the multinationals. So both do some things well. And I think the family-owned businesses also have to be prepared to get critics and get contrarians. It's very important. If you do not have a critic who's keeping a check on you, then you tend to look at things from your own lens. You're not seeing what you should be seeing. So it's very, very important to get that. Multinationals per nature tend to get that right. And they are partial towards contrarians. There. But family-owned businesses, some of them, are partial towards compliance. There. Would this follow, the person follow? And they're not too happy with people who can challenge them. I think that's where they miss the plot.
I think you've explained it so brilliantly and so succinctly. I want to get into this under the skin of your hiring process over the years. When you look at a CEO candidate, what are some of the less obvious signs that tell you the person will not only be a good cultural fit, but will also be able to move the needle? And are there any patterns or traits that you have identified that are markers of success across industries and sectors?
I think first of all, Anika, it's to be alignment of what is the larger purpose of an individual. There. We all are. Sometimes it's clear to us. Sometimes it is there in the subconscious mind. I don't think any professional lives life without a purpose or without having something that gives that person, maybe more of energy. There. I think discerning that becomes very important. Is this a part of the person's dream? Is this person actually going to be living that? That becomes very important. Otherwise, the person is going to do a job, and that will not make a great hire. Trust me, it will not. It may give you results 1 or 2 years. It may not give you stability, but it will not give. They will sap each other's energy. And this tends to happen. So therefore, you have to be a little conscious in terms of that. So I personally believe that unless you understand the DNA of the person, the larger objectives of a candidate, don't even get down to the professional side. That should be crystal clear. And do not depend on what the candidate is stating. Person will tell you what you want to hear. That's as simple as that. I want to create a larger impact. I want to do X, Y, Z. There. But then whatever the person's decisions have been, because there are choices the person will make, that will tell you whether that is authentic or that is something that this person is saying just because he wants you to believe in that. So you do need to spend sufficient time with the candidate. My own advice to my clients has always been, meet a candidate 3 times. The first time, do not ask anything professional. There. Just try to understand the DNA, the key drivers, what gives the person energy, what brings a smile to the person's face, what brings a frown. What are things that irritate the person? Get that man. If they are a tick box, then move to the next meeting or meeting the person professionally. There you try to discern what the person is all about professionally, what the competency the person has done, etc., and what does the person bring on the table. Get that little bit done. Third bit, which is most important, which is unfortunately ignored most of the time, is the future. Third meeting should be all about the future. What you want achieved. What are the 3 things that you feel are critical success factors? And how the person will go about the job. So that will give you a little peep on the thinking of the person. All 3, if you are taking notes or are you registering on your mind, will also indicate if there are contradictions with any of them.
Right.
If all the 3 things you have covered, the chances of getting it right will be far more. End of the day, the statistics are not great. According to research, 50% of hiring is mishiring worldwide in the top 100 organizations. And the minimum cost of mishiring is 26 to 100 times a candidate's package. So they are huge. So my advice is invest the time. Invest the time to do these 3 meetings. Do not do these 3 people meeting a candidate. That's always suboptimal. It should be one-to-one level. They should be try to keep the atmosphere as light as possible so the guard is off. The more formal it is, the more the guard will be on. There. So I think these little simple things will actually give better results. It's fascinating, but I think the most important thing that an organization does and should be obsessed is how are they hiring the best fit. And that should be driving them, not filling a position.
Ronesh, you have been in the business for decades now. Has there been one hire or one moment in your career that gave you a deep sense of purpose and also perhaps shaped the idea of leadership that you have today?
Yes, it did. I think there have been several instances, but one thing stands out as a point of, and it was in 2006, and the mandate was for Dr. Lal's Path Lab to get a CEO who would eventually be a CEO. I liked Dr. Arvind Lal a lot because he was very passionate about giving back, and his desire was that I want to take the company public. If my memory is right, the turnover of the company was less than 1 crore. There at that point of time, and he was handling everything. And we went around and spent a lot of time with him. One thing that I understood is that the most important, which sort of shaped it, is not the capability of the person. It's going to be the dynamics between the candidate and Dr. Arvind Lal. Because both would exist. Dr. Lal was clear that he would still want to be around in the business. And it is not easy to let go power. It's a human fact. Nobody wants to do that. And there would always be difference of opinion. When there are 2 individuals and with a good mind, they cannot possibly be thinking everything in the same way. If they are thinking there's something wrong, there. So those dynamics was what I thought was most important. There. Not the professional side. There was a list that person should be A, B, C, D, E. We looked at candidates from that part. And then I obviously looked at Dr. Lal, and then I told him, I said, look, what you need is this particular factor. I said, is it correct? He said, yes, it is correct. And then I encouraged him to hire Dr. Om Manchanda, who was very contrarian, who had not done actually 60-70% of what Dr. Lal wanted. Path Lab, he was an Ranbaxy, he was an animal doctor. They're doing something very different. There were other candidates who had done what he was doing. But I knew that somewhere down the line, the marriage would last. There will be a tussle for power and etc. And therefore encouraged him to hire, because the emotional maturity of Om Manchanda was very high. He was somebody who would adapt. He was somebody who was very good people, low I mean, uh, in terms of ego, and somebody who was very passionate about doing the right thing. I mean, they had a good mind. I mean, around the same time. And Om was also very doubtful whether I should join, because he was at a good company. This is a small company. I'm joining a promoter run. It is so small. I'm working in such a large size. So issue was how to get both of them to sign on this. I mean, God was kind, and I think they both agreed. Rest is history. I mean, he's just resigned after 20 years in the company, taken the company public. The market value is more than 60, 70,000 crores. So from a company from that to 20 there is huge. But that taught me one thing. Look at the human dynamics far more closely than the professional dynamics. I mean, they are invaluable. I mean, there. And you cannot ignore that with the other. If that is a tick box, looks at the other. But don't do the reverse. Professional a tick box and the human dynamics are a question mark, it will be a suboptimal hire. And that's something that's actually stood by me. I mean, there.
Ronesh, my last question to you will be about what we are seeing today, right? Living in the age of AI, automation, the entire talk around will it take away jobs? If you were to put three trends that will define the future of human capital in the next 5 years, what would those be?
So it's going to be actually very difficult period, to be honest with you, and it's going to be very challenging. I mean, there. So jobs, a lot of jobs will go away. There is absolutely no doubt. I mean, there. I think the hiring bit and getting the right person will become that much more difficult, because with AI you can game the system. From the CV, I mean, whatever you want, it can be customized. Wherever you're applying, what are things that would please, that will come around. They may or may not be authentic. To the interview, I mean, there, what you state, it may or may not be authentic. So therefore, chances of you getting it wrong will be far higher, not far less with the advent of technology. Because you're equipping the candidate with knowledge and information and insight that are maybe 10x better than what they are. So far easier for everybody to game the system. I mean, there. So you have to be very careful, I mean, in terms of that. For candidates also, it will be risky, because their tendency and temptation will be how I can get the job. They will try to ignore what is best for them. So the chances of them getting into a wrong company and a wrong place, and therefore destroying their career, will also magnify. I mean, there. So it will be a very different, I mean, world. But to be fair, I think 3-4 things that companies will need to keep in mind: how they are reinventing. Shelf life of any idea, any product, any service will keep on reducing. So whatever you are doing, expectations will continue to rise. Everything will be measurable. Today it may be a little fuzzy. I mean, what's the quality of service? What's the quality of a product? It may be a little fuzzy. Tomorrow it won't be. It will be data on the line. I mean, there. So therefore you will not have anything to hide. I mean, there. Which means that you have to be far more demanding on the quality of your product, the quality of your service, to see that there is no obsession. And you will need to be obsessed of obviously always being a one step ahead of the customer and not taking anything for granted. Trust me, the bigger companies more will become extinct in the coming 5 years than they have become in the coming 15 years. I mean, there. Because there will be huge risks to any ideas. I mean, there. So you will not be certain about the security and the stability of any company. I mean, there. However large the size is. I mean, there. Interestingly, research is that it's always been coming down. I mean, there. I mean, the companies, the top 500 becoming extinct, I mean, has been coming down rather than increasing. I mean, over there. So the writing is absolutely on the wall. I mean there. And third is that I think the speed will need to be 5-10x in anything that we do. I mean there. From your supply chain to the product delivery to everything, the customer experience, they will have to be 5-10x better. I mean there. So I think you just need to be prepared. And at the same time, unfortunately, the ecosystem will continue to be volatile. Whether it's geopolitical or whatever it is, that's a fact of life. Volatility will keep on increasing. So how are you able to adapt? How fast you are able to adapt as a company, also as an individual, will become very, very critical. And how open you are being challenged, that will become very important. Innovation and being open to criticism, I think the value addition will be more. But one leadership quality that I feel in the years ahead will be very critical, which is often not talked about, is the spiritual quotient. I think more than IQ and EQ, in the years ahead, SQ, which is spiritual quotient, will become more important. The reason is very simple. A CEO or any leader will take 10-20 decisions in a day, will not have the luxury of time, will not have analysis or data there. A lot of them and much more of them will be on intuitive ability. What is the gut saying? You will need to do that. If you don't react, you're dead. So therefore your intuitive ability is always higher if your spiritual quotient is higher. So therefore, I think for a leader, the spiritual quotient, the value system, they will become even far more important than they are today. And I think that's something that we need to be conscious of.
Thank you, Ronesh. Thank you for joining us today and for sharing such deep insights and perspective on how to hire, right? And like you said at the beginning, you have to be obsessed with hiring the best. I think that defines how we go from here. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Adhika. It's been a pleasure.